Hello and welcome to this Olympic edition of The Breakaway. My name is Ben Holden, coming to you from our portable TV studio here in downtown Washington, D.C. We've been talking a lot of Olympic hockey lately here on portable TV, and today I continue with the Olympic theme and Olympic ice. However, today I'll be talking about the ice on the speed skating oval with one of the absolute best and most decorated Olympic athletes of all time in any Olympic sport. She is Bonnie Blair, a five-time Olympic gold medalist in speed skating, a U.S. Olympic Hall of Famer, and a pioneer in her sport. She made her Olympic debut in '84 in the Sarajevo Olympics. 4 years later, she would come back for her second go at it in Calgary, where she won the gold in the 500 meters and the bronze in the 1,000 meters. 4 years later in Albertville, France, she would stand atop the podium with gold in both the 500 and the 1,000 meters. Then in 1994, in what would be her final Olympics, Blair did the double again, winning gold in the 500 and the 1,000 to cap her illustrious career with 5 gold medals and 1 bronze, the bronze coming in the '88 games in Calgary to push that total to 6 medals. She's also an 11-time World Cup points champion as well. She retired from competitive skating in 1995, and since then, she's gone on to become a wife and a mom of 2 kids. Grant, her son, a college hockey player at the University of Minnesota, and daughter Blair, who is a U.S. speed skater in the making. We'll also talk 2022 Winter Olympics with Bonnie and what it takes to compete at the top level in the world. With all that said, let's bring in Bonnie Blair, who joins us now from Wisconsin. Bonnie, it's so good to see you again. Welcome. Thanks for doing this. How's life these days for you?
Yeah, life is good. Looking forward to the games. Well, I guess they've really kind of already started, but looking forward to watching, especially the speed skating, obviously the most near and dear to my heart. But, you know, a lot of the other sports too. Women's hockey, we've got a few from our area here in Milwaukee on the team. So the men's hockey, it's got 3 boys that are on my son's college hockey team from Minnesota, as well as a couple of other guys that train with my husband in the off season in the summer. So, you know, kind of have connections and definitely going to try to keep some as close to tabs as I can.
That's great. So the Olympic fever never ends for you. And this is a unique one for you, Bonnie. I learned through research and talking to your son, which we'll get to in a minute, that this will be the first Olympics you haven't been at since '84, correct?
Yeah, so '84 was my first games, and you know, then I've been there in one capacity or another, usually kind of on a sponsor's coattail. But yeah, like to actually have to be in my own home during an Olympics is going to be really weird. I've kind of done it obviously during summer games, but for sure during the winter and not being in the stadium watching, you know, the speed skaters, it's really gonna be different for me. But I'll be cheering and probably checking my phone in the middle of the night.
I have no doubt. So busy life for you after your competition in the Olympics and the professional ranks and all you did. 2 kids now, you and Dave Cruikshank, your husband. For those that don't know, Dave is a coach. He trains with Bonnie, many of the Olympic skaters. He does power skating. He's worked with many NHL teams in his great career. How do you balance all that, Bonnie? I mean, how do you find the time to do everything with the family and Grant playing at Minnesota and helping Coach Blair and everything you're doing? How do you find the balance in your life?
Yeah, you know, I think we're pretty good. Dave and I really seem to like tag team pretty well. He's kind of got a little bit more of the coaching stuff with the speed skating right now, so I can kind of sneak out of town and maybe get an extra game of Grants where like Dave and Blair usually come in hot on Saturdays, you know, right as about the puck drops. But, you know, yeah, we just kind of look at the schedule and try to make it the best that we can. And, you know, both Dave and my parents, they were always there for us as we were chasing our goals and our dreams. So, you know, we want to be those type of parents for our kids. And let them know that we're there. And if they need anything, whether it's to go run and grab a sandwich before the game's going to start or whatever it is,
Hmm.
we're there for them, and we want to help them be able to chase their dreams.
That's awesome. So a little backstory, you and I know this, but for those watching, so I met Bonnie's son, Grant, 4 years ago. He started his college career at Colorado College, and it's clear, you can tell that his mom's a 6-time medalist, 5 gold medals by the way he skates. His father, of course, a great skater and a coach, as we're talking about. He was personable like you. I haven't met Dave, which I'm a little surprised, and we just clicked. And then I met Bonnie in Colorado College, and I think we talked for a half hour that time, and it was awesome to see your son, and I'm going to get to Blair after this, but to see your son doing what he's doing, you really are. I got to say, you and I talked over the weekend, and we talked about college hockey for about 10 minutes before we got to the reason I was calling you, which was this. You're the ultimate hockey mom. How awesome is it to watch your son do what he's doing?
Oh yeah, I love it. Grant skated a little bit in speed skating,
Yep.
but he was full force hockey. And, I'm all A-okay with that. My sister's kids, went on to college hockey, and so there was hockey in the blood, and that's really what Grant saw growing up. So, instead of a teddy bear, he went to bed with like a shinny stick. And so, I've got my cowbell. Of course, a lot of the colleges don't allow cowbells in the stadiums, and it really kind of drives me nuts. But when I can sneak them in, I'm the one making a lot of the racket. So that's me. I'm a crazy hockey mom.
You're fun to watch. You and I connected at Michigan a few weeks ago when I was doing their games, and we had to have, our camera ops needed to ID Bonnie, so we literally were on the phone to one another. Where are you? She stood up. I said, there she is. So it's awesome to see you up there doing that with Dave and your family. Your daughter, Blair, let's talk about her a little bit. You informed me, and it's out, that unfortunately she could not go through the quals. As a mom, how tough was that to watch her not be able to do it? Unfortunately, she tested positive for COVID. No symptoms from what you told me. That had to have been tough for you and your family, Bonnie.
Yeah, it really was tough. And we knew she wasn't going to make this Olympic team.
Mm-hmm.
Her sights are really more set on Italy. However, this was kind of like her Olympics of the 4 years, was just the trials, right? It's the biggest competition that we have for the United States in this year.
Yep.
And then it's televised, and then at one point it was sold out every day. But then we got to the point where she tested positive. They weren't going to allow her to take part. You had to sit out 10 days, no matter whether she had symptoms or not. And then they took all the spectators away. That probably helped her a little bit. She's like, well, now I'm not missing out as much. And, I think, both Dave and I were like, there's things that you can control and things you can't control. So, we couldn't do anything more. We got her tested again. And then with U.S. Speed Skating said, that's it. Now she's got to sit out 10 days. And that was beyond the time that she would get to race. So, then luckily our basement's kind of full of a lot of different weights and slide boards and bikes and elliptical and the whole gamut of stuff. And so Dave's like, all right, well, now we're going to go to race really fast in March in Salt Lake at the final competition for U.S. Speed Skating. And so she started training again twice a day. Olympic trials are going on, but she was hitting it twice a day here at home. And that probably helped her to take her mind off of things a little bit. But she also knew she couldn't, there wasn't anything more she could have done. And, we as a family were almost really quarantined leading up to it, because we knew if you test positive, you're out.
Right.
So, no gatherings for Christmas. We didn't go anywhere for New Year's. Literally, we're at the rink and at the house. And that was really it. So, looking back, is there anything else we could have done different? No, it's just one of those things that happened. And, at least for her, she knew she's got Italy in the forefront. So that helped. But there was another skater, Kamani Griffin, who's 30, and he tested positive,
Uh,
and this was his last go round,
uh,
and he didn't even get to have a last race. So I think. Then if she would have felt bad, it probably would have taken the sting away a little bit
right.
too. But when you don't even feel bad, that it was a hard pill to swallow. But she's full force, looking forward to March and skating some fast times, and she's in it till Italy and maybe even beyond, because she's young, and Ben, as you see, a lot of these athletes now, they're in their 30s.
Yeah.
I retired on my 31st birthday. Like, I could probably, I could have gone another like 4 years, right? Like,
Yeah.
why not?
Well, yeah. I mean, look at Tom Brady. He just retired at what, 44, right? So,
Yeah,
right?
right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's definitely, and I think part of that too, Ben, is, there's so much more information out there for these athletes to have longer careers. Whether it's about sleeping and eating and, everything that they're putting into their body, the training that they're doing can be monitored different. What we did was a great guess.
Yeah.
We planned on trying to peak, but that was a guess, and luckily we guessed right.
You certainly guessed right, no doubt about it. So I knew you'd enjoy talking about the kids. I wanted to get that perspective from you to let the audience hear that too, and it's really awesome. What a great family, great human beings, this entire family. I mean, just awesome, every single one of them. I want to take you back into the time machine. So you were, yeah, right? So from what I understand, Blair didn't start until 5 or 6 years ago, right? Skating?
Yeah, she was full force into gymnastics.
Okay.
And anytime she went to the rink where Dave has a gym, she just wanted to flip and tumble, and she'd go and she'd watch. She's a great spectator of hockey, and
Okay.
if you ever want to ask her what she thinks, she's going to tell you, and she'll say whether you did good or bad, and she tells Grant that.
Good.
So she loves being in the rink, but she had some issues with her wrists and had to give up gymnastics. And so then she felt like she needed to do something in the wintertime because she did soccer elsewhere. And so, yeah, she started speed skating, and now she's really kind of never looked back.
That's great. Well, she'll have her day. I hear she has good coaches, so I think she'll be okay, Bonnie.
That helps a little bit, maybe.
Right. So now for the time machine. I read you were born in Cornwall, New York. So you were born not far from West Point, moved to Champaign. So that's where you grew up. But and I mentioned Blair because the difference, you were on skates basically when you could walk. Your father, the whole family skated. Walk us through that. I know it's hard to recall the young years, but really the highlights of your childhood in terms of skating when you were real little.
One of my first memories is I remember being 5 years old and having 5 on my back, and I thought that was pretty cool. So that's kind of really my first memory.
Yeah.
But yeah, just loving the sport, loving the challenge of it, and just, looking forward to each season, having friends from different places, skating friends as well as friends in Champaign. So, yeah, it was a good thing, a fun time. And it was a family thing that we did. My dad was always one of the guys with the stopwatch at the finish line. And my mom sometimes was a judge, but that meant who crossed the line first. And that's why we had the numbers on their back, because then they could tell who went over at which point. Now that's all electronic. They don't even need it anymore. But, it was a family thing that we did. And yeah, I'm the youngest by far in my family. So a lot of them were really kind of done by the time I started really climbing up the ranks.
I'm really glad you mentioned that about your father, because that was something that I pulled again from research. And the truth behind that, he felt you were going to be the one that was going to be the Olympic champion. Is that... That's accurate? That's what he felt?
Then there was another time I was like a junior in high school, and his work wasn't far from my school and I was going to bum a ride home. And, he introduced me to this new coworker of his and just said, "This is my daughter, Bonnie. She's going to be in the Olympics and she's going to win an Olympic medal." And I'm thinking, are you nuts? Like, because at that time I really only skated the short track version of speed skating and hadn't done long track, and short track wasn't in the Olympics back then. But, a few years later, then I find myself, skating these Olympic style races. And I'm like, well, maybe my dad was right. Maybe I could go to the Olympics. And then as I started getting better and being on the podium, I'm like, well, maybe my dad knew something I didn't. So, did he have this premonition? Did he put that idea in this little kid's head? I have no idea, but it's a bizarre thing. And the gentleman he introduced me to, I had gotten a fax, or a telegram, I guess it was back in the day, like in '92, saying, "I remember that day your dad introduced me." And, just, one of those bizarre one of those things that's just, like, how does that work, right?
Yeah, that's awesome. So at 15, you try out for the national team, you make the team, you go to Europe. Give me the particulars on Europe. And I know there was money raised from the police in Champaign, Illinois. They helped raise money. I believe the number was $7,000 or $8,000. How did that work? Where'd you live? Who'd you train with? And as you were on your way to eventually becoming the 5-time gold medalist that you are today, Bonnie.
Yeah, I was very lucky that my hometown police department got behind me. I was actually playing summer recreational softball on a team that was sponsored by the Champaign Police Department. So the guy that had helped us with that, his daughter was on our softball team and kind of caught wind that, I had this opportunity to go over to Europe and knowing that, it was going to cost money, and I didn't think that we had, my dad was like, "I don't think we've got enough to be able to do that." And he goes, "Well, let's meet up and find out what you need." And we met up at, my dad brought his shoebox of receipts. We met at a Perkins, and he told him what we needed. And he's like, "All right, you go skate. We'll take care of the rest of it." And really what it was they were behind just doing a lot of different fundraisers in my hometown. So in reality, it was kind of really like my whole hometown really kind of came together to support me to be able to have that ability to go chase my goals, chase my dreams, and with the police department heading it up. And, to think of, what that means for people to get behind this kid and be able to go and chase her dreams. And now it's so different where you can have GoFundMe page. This was like almost like a GoFundMe page in the early stages of things. And they were very helpful to me in those first few crucial years, until I started gaining success. And then once I started getting the success, then I didn't need their help anymore. And then I turned that around. After I was done, there were different things that I could help my hometown community with, and I helped them out to raise money and funds for some other stuff. So, it kind of really did come full circle.
That's awesome stuff. Yeah, you were GoFundMe before GoFundMe. That's really cool. Right? 84 Olympics, Sarajevo, your first time on the global stage. You finished 8th that year in the 500 at 19 years old. What did that do to you, Bonnie, in terms of the fire inside of you as an Olympic athlete? How much did that fuel you to get ready for Calgary?
Yeah, well, first of all, even just opening ceremonies was unbelievable. And I picked out my mom and my 2 sisters that were there. That was the smallest Blair bunch. And, it was just, it was electrifying, just even opening ceremonies. Being in the cafeteria, and one day I had lunch with Scott Hamilton and Phil and Steve Mayer, and I thought I had died and gone to heaven.
Cool.
So different things like that were so cool. But the race itself in the 500, which I got to compete in there,
Hmm.
I thought if I could get anywhere near top 10, that would be great.
Hmm.
And it's too bad they don't have videos of it from back then, because I finished eighth. And if you probably would have watched me after I crossed the finish line, you would have thought I won, because that, like, it was like an electrifying race for me. And I was in like hook, line, and sinker, like, I'm going to keep doing this. And that's really just where it all started. And I just kind of kept going on this uphill swing. And yeah, that fire was burning bright, and I just kept throwing more wood on the fire until 94.
Yeah, right, exactly. So, like, I've always been curious with this. I'm going to get to Calgary next, but I've always been curious with this, with men and women like yourself to compete in the Olympics. It's hard to throw a number on it, I think, Bonnie, but in the 4-year span, is it 7 days a week, or are you taking a day or two off here because all you're doing is training? Like in your case, it's about 40 seconds in the 500, right? If I have my math right. So how many days would you say in that 4-year stretch? Like, is it 80% of the day? Is it 90% of the days during that you were training or doing something for the next Olympics?
Yeah, usually at the end of every season, we're going to get like 6 to 8 weeks of off.
Okay.
So that, you either do nothing, you could just be active, like go play tennis, go play golf, whatever. But, once training kind of starts, most days are 2 workouts a day. They range anywhere from like, 2 to 3 hours, given warm up, warm down, all that kind of
Mm-hmm.
stuff. And then typically it's a 6-day work week for athletes.
Okay.
So, I think the other thing to kind of look at is you also take, like, let's say maybe 3 weeks, and you're kind of building in those 3 weeks. And then that fourth week is way less volume. You can get away from things. My husband working with my daughter now. Usually that fourth week, it's like, let's just get away from the ice totally. You might just do some things active, go for a hike, maybe a bike ride, easy run, just something to kind of keep the blood flowing. But, get away, because I think it's also important to get away mentally as
Mm-hmm.
well as it is physically. And you kind of have those periods throughout the season. So, yeah, it's work. And, like, and the distance skaters are, they're probably putting in the same amount of time or longer. It's just that ours is different. Ours might be, shorter, faster excursions.
Mm-hmm.
They might have to do like a 20 lapper, at a certain amount of time. So, they're all kind of relative. But yeah, you've got to put in the time to get those to reap the rewards.
Yeah, I'm going to just tell you, I've got goosebumps already before I ask you this. You go to Calgary, you set a world record, you win the 5, you win your first gold, you're on the podium. And I say that because last night I was watching an interview with you, and you talked about the feeling of hearing the anthem on the podium. And that resonated with me. I served in the military. I did Army football for 9 years. I'm a very proud American. I can't imagine what that's like. I want to hear you tell me what that was like. What do you recall from that first time? Because you never forget the first. What was it like, Bonnie?
Yeah, the first time, I think, and you're gonna make me cry.
I don't want to make you cry.
but yeah, my family, which then was like 25 members of the Blair Bunch,
Yep.
were in Calgary, and they were in one area to watch the race.
Mm-hmm.
But they kind of wanted to be right front and center where the awards podium was. But obviously, that's not where their seats were. So,
Mm-hmm.
unlike now today, where everybody's in a certain, they were maneuvering during different things. And, I saw my sister Angela, and she just had a big, huge grin on her face. And my sister Susie, she was crying. My brother Rob was high-fiving his best friend. Further over in the stands, I see my sister Mary, and she's just yelling, screaming, going absolutely nuts. I saw my mom. She looked like scared to death, as if I was still racing.
Hmm.
And, it was special for me to look out into the audience and see all those different emotions. because I can safely say that that's what it feels like to win an Olympic gold medal. And I was lucky enough to do it 5 different times at 3 different Olympics.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, Ben, there's nothing quite like it. And and then if I go to my last Olympics and being on the podium there for the 1,000 meters,
Mm-hmm.
and hearing that national anthem, I didn't want it to stop because I knew, like, I'm never going to hear this the way it's being played again, like right now. And, anytime I hear the national anthem, it just definitely has a different place in my heart, and but brings back a flood of memories. But yeah, all of them great. But yeah, I'm crying. But it's emotional, and you're there. You're representing your country. I was representing my family. I was representing my sport as speed skating, and those the police that did so much to help me even just get there, the coaches, like all those kind of things really come back to know that there's so many people in that wheel that made it spin perfectly, that made those successes and those wins that much more special.
You're going to make me cry now.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. I could talk with you for hours.
I didn't know I was going to need Kleenex.
I didn't either. That is incredible. I mean, I feel it coming through the wall, and you and I have met more than once face to face. It's thanks for sharing that. I want people to understand what that's like, and there's no better person to hear that from you. 92 outdoor in Albertville, right? Outdoor Olympics, so it's different. It's more of a challenge because you're dealing in Calgary. It was indoor. Sarajevo was outside too, I believe. But you go to Albertville in 92, and you become the first woman to go back-to-back in the Olympics in those events and winning the gold. Memories that are still fresh and vivid from that Olympics, Bonnie.
I don't know if they're really fresh and vivid, but, yeah, it was outside. In fact, my 500 was delayed due to it was kind of warm, and so they were kind of waiting for the sun to go over the building so that the ice would harden up a little bit more. And I remember and we didn't know that till we got to the rink. And so then I'm like, okay, well, now I'm here an hour earlier than I really wanted to be. And then I peeked outside and I saw my family that was started to arrive in the stands. Well, I hadn't seen them since they had, I wasn't really planning on seeing them.
Right.
So anyway, I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to go see them and, hop the fence. Once again, probably something you wouldn't be able to do now, but went up into the stands, got to see my family and hug my mom and, say a quick hello. And then I realized how nervous they were. And I'm like, all right, I got to get out of here. You guys are going to drive me nuts. So, but one of the other things I noticed, Ben, too, when I was visiting my family, I'm watching, and some of my competitors were already on the ice. And I'm like, what are they doing? Like, they're really an hour before they really needed to be doing that. And, I kind of looked at that and I thought, oh, well, kind of sucks to be you because I'm not changing my timeline of what I would normally do. And now they're kind of off sync. And so, I think that's, another thing, things can get thrown at you, but you always have to kind of go back to, well, what's my routine? What do I need to do? How do I need to perform my best? And I just kind of laughed because I thought, well, you guys aren't sticking to your routine, but I'm gonna. And, yeah, then it worked for me.
Right. Speaking of the word routine, this is what I love about interviews like this because, yeah, I've got questions and topics and all that. But I understand that there's an interesting sidebar that I'll get to part of what was your routine. But I want to hear from you, like, what was, on a serious note, what was your routine like when you When were you dialed in? When were you locked in? You know, like your son plays hockey, your daughter competes, all that. We all have a different feeling of how and when you're locked into whatever it is you're doing. What was the routine like for you before you stepped up when you were in a gold medal race? What are some things that you went through and did, whether it was physically, spiritually, mentally, whatever it was, Bonnie?
Well, the one thing was I always had a peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
There it is.
So, that and a glass of milk. And I'm
Really?
sure that that's probably not the ideal thing to have before you're going to race. And it wasn't like right before I was going to the starting line, but, you know, it would probably be an hour before I was headed to the rink. And, you know, most of our races were like after lunchtime. So, so that was one thing. But, you know, I think that that's what it is. You wind up finding what works for you.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, like arriving to the rink a couple, 2 hours before you're going to go, you know, go through a warm up, whether that's on the bike or jogging and stretching. And then you go and you skate, you warm up actually skating, get off the ice. You know, maybe you might have to sharpen your skates again, or, you know, you just kind of relax a little bit, maybe get on a bike, go for a quick jog. And then you're back out on the ice ready to go. And, you know, right before the race, you're not doing a whole lot, maybe a lap and a half easy, a good kind of acceleration, and then probably what we call a crazy start, where you're just barely going, and then you quick throw the strokes in to make sure your groins are nice and warmed up. And, you know, maybe the pair that's going before me, I always kind of, in my mind, I'm listening to the starter and trying to get an idea of, you know, when's the gun going to go off, and, just kind of go through the motions without really hitting it yourself. It's, so a little bit of that, but I think everybody finds what things work for them, and that's what you have to play around with. And I had plenty of years to figure that all out.
So after Lillehammer, your final Olympics, 94, you become the first American woman to win 5 golds, first American Winter Olympian to win 6. Absolutely remarkable. You are the benchmark. That is incredible. So my question is this. So what was it that made you decide this is it, I'm done competing in the Olympics? What was it for you, Bonnie? How did that all work out?
Well, I think first we were very lucky that when they staggered the winter and summer games, winter was the first to go. So we had 92, and then we got to go 94, which was a 2-year stagger. So that was pretty nice. I think had it hadn't been staggered, I would have gone to 96.
Okay.
But then, you got to the 94, and now you're looking at 98, and I was getting a little bit, I was almost 30. And like I said earlier, I could have kept going probably. But, I just kind of felt like it was going to be my time. Like I said, that was going to be my last Olympics. But I knew at that point I was going to be competing the whole next season, because on a non-Olympic year, the World Championships is the biggest competition when the Olympics isn't happening. So I knew that our World Championships was going to be in Milwaukee, which is my hometown.
Yep.
So I knew I was going to skate through 1995. So even though I was done with the Olympics, I knew I was going to go one more year. And, where in Lillehammer there were, I think it was like 60 members of the Blair Bunch. My final competition here in the Milwaukee area, there was over 300 members of the Blair Bunch in the stands. And
wow.
It was a special way to kind of, really cap off my career. And I was able to win all 4 events, 4 races, being the overall title winner. And it was, a great way to go out. And, you can't ever predict that that's what's going to happen. I just knew that when the biggest competition of the season came to my hometown, I knew I couldn't sit in the stands. Like I just wouldn't have been comfortable. And so, I knew that I had to go out there and race for one more season. And it was a great way to go out.
You've been on the cover of Sports Illustrated.
I actually was on 3 different Sports Illustrated.
Were you?
And I think my dad was probably, maybe the most proud of that. I don't know, because that was like the only like magazine that came to our house.
Yep.
Having to be on that, I was sports person of the year with Johann Olaf Koss in '94. So yeah, that's pretty special. And then obviously that's not why I skated.
Right.
But yet different things kind of came your way like that.
Just a couple more things for you, Bonnie. I've gathered from this that you're an Olympic geek, I guess, for lack of better words.
A little bit.
Yeah. So with that said, could you give me your Mount Rushmore of U.S. Olympians, or am I putting you on the spot too much?
Oh my good. Well, for sure, Eric Heighton.
Yep.
I mean, you've got to have Eric up there.
Okay.
Michael Phelps.
Yep.
Oh my gosh.
Yep.
And I actually got to meet him at a mall once. It was pretty funny. You didn't give me like time to prepare to think about it, because then you got to think about, there's so many different sports, or do you just stay in winter?
Well, how about this? How about you just tell me your favorite athletes that you've enjoyed watching, or maybe they're still competing. Who would those be?
Yeah, and I think maybe if we even just go with some winter guys, two of my favorites are two of my really good buddies, and that's Dan Jansen and Mike Eruzione. So
cool.
It's always a good time to be around them. We have a lot of fun. I think one of the nice things about being an Olympian is once you're an Olympian, you're always an Olympian.
Yeah.
And it's a great group of alumni to have. And, I think for the most part, you find that Olympians are a little bit different than your average sports person, just because for the most part, we're in it because we love it.
Yep.
Because there's usually not a lot of dollar signs tagged to it, like a football player or a baseball player, basketball.
Yep.
It comes, I think it comes from a little bit different place inside. And that's not to say that those that are in the pros and really make good money at doing what they're doing don't love what they do. But for us, it really has to come from a deeper place, because sometimes that's the only thing that gets us to the next workout or gets us to the next competition.
Last thing, I know that you and I texted about this, so I'm giving you a little bit of heads up. I don't know how far away they are. There, look at that. She's ready. So you have...
I know. I don't know how easy it is to see.
Oh, my goodness.
But this is Calgary. And you can tell it's kind of a little worn around the edges. And they were engraved on the bottom. It kind of depicts all the different sports on the back of it. So that was the gold one. Obviously, the bronze one looks like it's brand new, because it really doesn't ever go anywhere.
Right. Well, when you got 5 golds, why would it?
Right. Albertville, these were made with Lalique crystal. So they're very fragile. So they really don't go too many places just because they are so breakable. But these, they're not, there's no real, it says Albertville, but there's no engraving. So this wasn't different from a hockey medal or a skiing medal or whatever. So because I got 2 of them, I wound up like writing 500 meters on there so that I knew which one was which, just, for my own sake.
Yeah.
And then the Lillehammer games, those were kind of cool because, this being more of a hockey program, when they built the hockey rink, they built it into the side of the mountain. So when they dug it out, they used the granite for the innerlay of the medals.
Cool.
So then they wound up being, all kind of different. And then you can tell that, this is a speed skating one because the backside has a speed skater on it. So, they're all kind of different. They're unique. And then if you can see this is where they typically are. They're in what I call my Olympic coffee table.
Cool.
So, you know, it's got a ring for each one, including the fifth ring, which is where Dave was also in the Nagano games.
Okay.
So we were in 3 together and 1 each separate. So I had a very good friend create an Olympic coffee table. There's only one like it.
Wow.
And it's right in my living room.
That is awesome, Bonnie. This was so much fun and very informative, very educational. Sorry about the tears, but you almost made me cry too.
It's all good.
I know it is. I could talk to you for another hour. Really appreciate this.